Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervais Charmley. This is a church in Rutland. In fact, it's the first church in this series in Rutland. I checked as, well, I saw the sign on the way in. I didn't check. This is the Church of the Holy Trinity. I think it's pronounced Teigh, actually, but it may be pronounced otherwise. It's an English name. But this is what happens when your rector suddenly and unexpectedly inherits a fortune, which is, he says, I'm going to rebuild the church. This is where Robert Sherard, the Reverend Robert Sherard, was rector in 1770s when his elder brother, Lord Harborough, died, leaving him the entire estate and quite a lot of money. And as we saw at Stapleford, the new Lord Harborough had very definite ideas about how a church should work. Now, unusually here, I'm actually standing, I've actually got the camera at the east end, and behind me is the west end, and that is the pulpit. That's the pulpit. It's a three-decker, so we've got the pulpit in the middle, and then we've got the reading desk and the clerk's desk, and I'm not quite sure which is which, because they're effectively the same height. Unlike at Stapleford, Sherard hasn't said, well, I'm going to have I've got a gallery at the back for me, because this isn't his family church. But he is the rector, and so he reviews his ideas here. He says, we will have the pulpit at the west end. That is the west door. You go in through there under the pulpit. So if you come in late in the service, everyone can see you, because you are literally coming in. For most of the service, you will be beside the minister, and with the parish clerk looking on disapprovingly on the other side, because parish clerks did that, or that's what they're supposed to do anyway. And we have the Lord's Prayer and the Creed. And, well, let's have a look around. We'll see that the layout is very much the same as at Staples, but it's smaller. Once again, the whole thing's been rebuilt, except in this case for the tower. The tower is 13th century. The rest is 1790s, and it is Lord Harborough decides, I'm going to build my perfect church. So this is one man's ideal of what an Anglican church should look like. Let's look around. Well, we usually start at the west end, so why do things differently now? But we're here actually inside the tower, in the porch, basically. And you can see we've got this is an 18th century lining to the porch, to the tower. The tower, of course, is square, but Sherard wanted a nice circular bit, so that's what he got, because he put the money up. This is the parish chest with its three locks, again, one for each of the church wardens and one for the rector. And that means none of them can help themselves or alter the records kept within. Here we have I believe that, yes, this is the clerk's pew. This is where where the parish clerk would leave the people in their responses. So up we go, and this is the parish clerk's view. You can see over there. Originally, the font was a bracketed thing attached to the communion rails. That does still exist, but what they've done is they've said, well, we want to actually have the font halfway down now, so they've taken out one set of pews. And again, it's this collegiate raked pew design. It's a bit less fancy than that one at Stapleford, but the same idea. And up here we have the ceiling. You can see the royal arms in the middle. And then we've got the feathers of the Prince of Wales. On this side, we've actually got the Sherard arms. So very 18th century, there's this Strawberry Hill Gothic as it's known. Well, we go down again. So back down here, you can see. And then on the other side is the door that leads into the pulpit, or into the reading desk and pulpit. And we shall have a look in it. Whether we'll climb or not depends how I feel at the moment. But beware, narrow steps, high pulpit. And you can see here's the reading desk, and that's a fold-down seat. So he's got a fold-down seat for the reading portion of the service, and then the spiral staircase continues upwards to the pulpit. Oh, there it goes. And we won't go any higher because a bit awkward. So that's how it works. Normal three-decker, again, what you have is you've got stairs so that the minister can go from the pulpit, or from the reading desk to the pulpit proper. Nice pine benches. They probably would originally have been painted though. Today we like the idea of not painting them. The font here, this is a replacement, maybe even 20th century font, that style. But there's the original font, and you can see it's this nice little bowl with it's wooden, so it's got a lead lining, and it's very much for sprinkling, a fusion. There's the pulpit, and in proper Strawberry Hill style, it's got this fake window around it with trees painted behind, and it's a beautiful, beautiful setup. So that is the pulpit at one end, and this is of course why you've got these collegiate style benches, is because what this allows is for the people to turn their heads one way for the communion and turn their heads the other way for the rest of the service. So obviously they'd have had there's a reading desk and the pulpit. It's a lovely pulpit, but very much, if you come in late, there's the vicar on one side, or the rector on one side, and there's the parish clerk on the other, and they are neither of them very impressed with you. Originally the windows would have been plain glass. They have been, in the 19th century, given this coloured glass. We have the law, where you have the commandments either side, and so the communion table is, originally it would have been brought forward, it's been pushed back altar-wise. The reredos is mostly original. You have this very nice painting of the Last Supper, which is a copy of a Dutch painting. It's not worth anything, but it's a copy. And the pews, and then that, again, the takeaway from this entire church is that pulpit. This is what it's famous for, and there is not another pulpit like it, because obviously when he did Stapleford, he used his family pew for his pulpit, but here he had to have a pulpit of his own. So we do have a list of rectors. So it tells us that the Sherards take over in 1662 as the patrons, and 1743 the Honourable Robert Sherard becomes rector, and then it happens that in 1787, well, 1770s, his brother dies and he becomes Lord Harborough. So he is then Robert, Earl of Harborough, he's the patron, and in 1787, when he retires, he appoints John Torkington to be the rector here, and it carries on. And then we have the War Memorial here. So it's a very, very unusual building. It's very Georgian, it's very Protestant, it's very picturesque. So that's the inside, which is the most impressive bit. Not the outside is uninteresting, it's just that the inside's got that pulpit. So let's have a look at the outside and see how it measures up. And so here we are outside. You can see it's basically a simple preaching box with a 13th century tower at one end. Very much the period. It is a small church that we saw inside. It doesn't have to have the same numbers of people as Stapleford. And therefore what he's done is he's said, well, this is what we need, and build a nice, simple, neat Gothic building. So we'll look around and see the various features of this nice, simple, neat Gothic building built when the rector inherited a fortune. So here we are, Holy Trinity. Now, I say the tower is 13th century. It's really in the bottom part that's obviously so. The rest has been rebuilt and refaced in order to fit with the ashlar stone preaching box. I think it's a neat building. A lot of money went into it, but it's money to make it look as a neat, tidy little Georgian box. Next door, that's where that is where the Honourable Reverend Robert Sherard lived. That's the old rectory, and so he built his church next door. And it's not as big as his other church, but it doesn't need to be. And here, no doubt the locals appreciated their aristocratic clergyman. Certainly when he said, rather than our old church where the roof leaks, rather than the old church with the roof leaks, I'm going to build you a brand new church that's going to be bang up to date in all its facilities. And because it's the Georgian period, of course, you get this preaching box. And that beautiful, beautiful pulpit that is, so there's nothing else like it to my knowledge. 3 deckers are common, but that's an uncommon 3 decker. I said they're not that common anymore, but 3 deckers were normal. But that is not a normal 3 decker, that is an abnormal 3 decker. So we back up here, and you can see you've got this crenellation, simple, and it's all the better for the simplicity, because like I said, the Georgian era likes its simplicity, it likes its relative plainness. But there's nothing cheap about this building. This is a man with money. And here we have, again, this business that there are many ministers and clergymen who have ideas about church architecture, and these days, if you had a very rich clergyman, he might be allowed to do some restoration work, but he certainly wouldn't be allowed to just indulge his passion and his ideas in the way this building is. And this is his own perfect church. Stapleford has to have that family pew, and he gets to use that as the pulpit. But here he gets to do a pulpit. Now here we are. This is the 13th century tower. You can see here the base. There's that very nice but rather rubbly ironstone, and then above that's a 13th century window, and you can see that stage is rendered, and then above there it's probably either rebuilt or refaced, and part of it's going to be new and part of it old. I mentioned this is a wool area. You can see here the sheep, modern day sheep across the road from the church. That's where all the money here comes from. It was wool originally. And there's the church and the rectory. It's a very typical sort of late 17th, early 18th century rectory there. Would have been built by the Sherards, most likely. Certainly would have been rebuilt by them. And so this is, I say, absolutely unique building. It's neat and plain on the outside, and then you go inside and you have this Strawberry Hill Gothic fantasy. We saw the woodwork there. Now it's all been stripped and exposed, but originally it would have been painted, and it might have been painted white, it might have been painted pink, it might have been painted blue. They like to paint this sort of pastel colours, so that sort of thing. And there we have it. The north side is just as simple and plain as the south, and there's the old rectory beyond. So there we have it, Holy Trinity. So I think it's pronounced Teigh, maybe T or Teigh. Didn't look up pronunciation before coming, I probably should have. Anyway, Holy Trinity, Robert Sherard's ideal church. And you can see it's a building that someone has put so much effort into. This is what I want. He didn't design it himself, he got an architect friend of his to do it. But the actual ideas are all his. And that's why it's such a special little building here. And again, it's not very far from Edmundthorpe, not very far from Wymondham. This area, there's so many interesting churches, so maybe If you're ever in the area, you can make a day of it, visit several, and enjoy this special corner of England. Well, thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you until next time.